Modern Horizons 3 is just around the corner, or some might say it's on the horizon. It's everyone's favourite set that sounds like an Australian soap opera, but what it also brings with it, beyond these poor jokes that I've used a million times in videos previously, is power-crept designs. New designs and old cards that aren't currently in Modern being reintroduced or introduced for the first time into Modern. They're not being reintroduced because they weren't in it in the first place. That was just a misspeaking from me that I'm now labouring as a point in the video. Modern Horizons as a concept is designed to go straight into Modern and anything older, so it circumvents and avoids Standard and avoids warping it with its increased power level, so Wizards can push that power level for appropriate cards for Modern and Legacy and Commander without ruining their Standard environment. Meanwhile, since the inception of Modern Horizons, we've had Uro in Standard at one point and need to be banned in 4 different formats, and of course Shieldwood is probably a mistake anyway. The point I'm making there is that there's still mistakes made in terms of power level going to Standard, but for the most part the collateral damage is avoided by allowing them to do those designs elsewhere. This all sounds quite logical, but it's not without its problems. The Modern Horizons paradox, as I call it. We all like powerful and cool Magic cards. I also really like powerful and complicated Magic cards too. Hogak was a Magic card that immediately piqued my interest. My little ears pricked up, my synapses fired, and my cock was engorged. It was exciting. In the words of the great Chosen One and Prophet,
now this is pod racing.
But Hogak went on to absolutely f*** Modern up for a time, resulting in a ban. So they can push the power levels, but they can still mess things up by getting cards that need to be banned in Modern or Legacy or even Commander to a lesser extent. But even outside of bans, there's a tension, where we want the cool new jingly thing to be dangled in front of our pretty little noses, but we don't want it to get rid of our nostalgic love for the old cards that we get to play with. The reason we play Modern or Legacy, or at least some of us play Modern or Legacy, is to play with classic cards that we love. But some cards are just power crept out even compared to Modern Standard things like Loxodon Smiter. Meanwhile, Malira Combo, for example, just doesn't live up to and isn't able to compete or isn't as efficient as Yorgamoth Combo, a much better deck that plays a lot of the same pieces, but it's just much more efficient because the engine itself is a power crept card for Modern Horizons. So you can get pushed out by just not being as good as one of the new Modern Horizons hotnesses in the same sort of shell, or it could be that the new Modern Horizons cards just make your old cards feel like shit. Prismatic Endings and Furies and Solitudes just being too good and too efficient for you to fight through. Yes, Fury is banned now, and no, the creature decks didn't make the resurgence that I wanted or thought they would. Some did. Yorg become too good, so the creature deck or creature combo deck using a Modern Horizons card, and then the Humans has recently had a resurgence, and Merfolk as well to a lesser extent. So both of those decks are now more playable now that Fury is gone. But either way, power crept answers and power crept engines will make old cards feel like shit. So that's the video today. We're going to talk about the Modern Horizons paradox and my complicated feelings around Horizons, because I both love and hate the product line and sets. And if you want to pick up single or sealed product or pre-order anything from Modern Horizons, you can do so via Cool Stuff Inc. There's a link in the description below to get 5% off your order. If you hit the link in the description, use the code KENOBI at checkout to help support the show. And if you ever wanted to own your own signed Flicker Wisp by me focus camera, well, you can. If you check out the link below to whatnot.com to the app, it's like eBay meets Twitch. It's like live streamed auctions. I do giveaways, I do auctions, and I got buy it now stuff as well. If you use the link in the description below, you get £10 off your first purchase, help support the show. So you buy a £10 single, you just pay shipping, you get yourself a signed Flicker Wisp for your own party box, and I'll have other stuff going up on the shop every single month. So check out the link down below and bookmark that first show. I'll see you over on Whatnot. A little bit of context for what Modern Horizons 1 and 2 did to the landscape of Magic. Modern Horizons 1 landed at the beginning of Fire Design in June 2019. The key cards meant to dominate multiple formats before bannings included Astrolabe and the Snowlands, which were cards that allowed people to fix their mana and gave a very strong engine to Urza and Yorion decks. Urza himself also became very prominent in Modern before Astrolabe's banning. Yorion plus Astrolabe was intense. The Modern Horizons plus Companion era of Magic was fucking wild. I found those areas fun because I got to make videos and talk about them and play them on stream and in gameplay, and it's an exciting unfolding time for a metagame to evolve and change, both as new things were introduced and things were banned or errated. But I'm also from a unique perspective where I get to do that without there being a huge monetary loss, because I get to rent my cards and borrow my cards and make videos about the cards. If I'd bought into an £80 playset of a card, for example, Astrolabe wasn't that expensive, but other cards could be, and then gets banned out from under me, or my entire deck gets banned out of the game, I'd feel a lot more pissed off. off. I'll come to more unpacking that in a moment once we finish the context. And we better not forget Hogak as a key card from this set that also went on to, well, it was meant to be a commander card, but it ended up absolutely dominating Modern. It was so good, people were playing main deck Leyline of the Void, and my win rate crept up significantly. I got to play in a stream event at the time when I was beating players way better than me because I was playing the broken Hogak deck. Importantly, Hogak was also good because it used Altar of Dementia. As I mentioned earlier, older cards that weren't currently Modern legal were printed into Horizons to introduce them to Modern. In this case, we had Altar of Dementia, among other things, and with Modern Horizons 2, there was Counterspell introduced to Modern to, well, limiting effect. Modern Horizons 2 came 2 years later in the June of 2021, and it arguably brought worse designs than Modern Horizons 1 in my opinion, much more pushed anyway. The one we really need to talk about was Ragavan, the most pushed aggressive one-drop creature with added utility and fixing attached to it. It was, and still is, weak in the late game into a crowded board state where it can't attack through and there's too many blockers. It does die to every removal spell ever. But the two things I just described as downsides for Ragavan are downsides for like all one-drops in the history of Magic. So it is a one-drop with the same downsides, but its upsides are so astronomically high compared to everything else that there are decks that will just drop playing Delver of Secrets to play Ragavan and another card I'm going to mention over it. On top of Ragavan, we've got Dragonmage Channeler. So they've got two efficient, utility, aggressive red one-drops in the same fucking set, as if Days-based tempo decks in Legacy needed any more help. And on top of that, they did a 2-mana 8/8 flyer. No, I'm not joking. This fucking thing is a power creep redesign of Gravestalker. The black one, though, just wasn't as good because it wasn't pitchable to Force of Will or playable alongside Delvers and Dazes and similar. And I'm saying legacy cards, but Murktide also still see some play in Modern 2. And the last one I'll mention from Modern Horizons 2 is the elemental cycle of fury and solitude, of subtlety, of endurance, and of grief. Now, there are so many crimes in the Modern Horizons sets that I wrote way too long a script for this video, so I'm cutting it down to like the cliff notes, if you will. But this cycle is one that we cannot not mention when talking about Modern Horizons 2, because Fury is now banned in Modern, and Grief is still a discussion point for both Modern and Legacy for being so unbelievably good when you turn one, play it for free, and then scam it by reanimating it for 1 mana when it dies, thus double griefing somebody, double thought seizing somebody, leaving you with a 3/2 menace creature, or 4/3 menace creature in some cases. The aim with these things seemed to have been to make these formats more interactive with free interaction spells, but what it actually did was kind of ruin the fun for some decks. Fury, as an example, is a card I spoke about a lot, and I think it was the big culprit in pushing things like Infect and Humans and Merfolk and D&T out of the format, because you just don't want to play 2 or 3 creatures to get them furied. I've spoken about this at length in videos before, but in reality, I actually absolutely stand behind what I've said in the past, but I should have been a bit harder. I should have talked about Grief, and how Grief is nearly as bad. Well, I did talk about how it was nearly as bad, but my focus was absolutely on Fury, because I felt like it damaged the decks that I like to play, and it did, and I've played synth and had a lot more fun playing while Fury is gone, but Grief is also a fucking ongoing problem. 5 of the most played creatures in Modern right now are creatures from Modern Horizons, and there is a 6th special one from Modern Horizons 2.5 with Orcish Bowmaster being from the Lord of the Rings set. Lord of the Rings was also straight to Modern, although it seemed to be a little bit less power crept in terms of the pushing that they did, and thus it might be an indication of them learning from previous mistakes and feedback over time, bearing in mind that by the time Modern Horizons 2 had come out, they hadn't really had time in that 2-year window to adjust or change things from the feedback they got from Modern Horizons 1, which had essentially worked 2 years in the past. So it takes time for the feedback to have an impact. But now we live in a world where the format is absolutely dominated by cards from Modern Horizons 1 and 2. Even the cheaty Reanimator deck, there's a Goyo's deck that's a bit more fringe, but Indomitable Creativity as a deck, which has a Reanimated sideboard plan often, that one cheats into play big fatties from Modern Horizons 2. Archon of Cruelty and Sarah's Emissary are the fatties of choice, as opposed to your traditional Griselbrands or even the more modern Atraxa. And that's the paradox. I want to see cool, new and interesting cards. Every new card I see from Modern Horizons 3 has me frothing at the gash with excitement, but it also makes me realise that I'm going to have to say goodbye to other cards from older formats that just won't see play anymore because they're just not going to be as good. For every Soul Herder that creates a new archetype, there's a Caldra Complete. And the reason I bring up both of these cards is that both of them are 2 of my favourite cards from Modern Horizons sets. Soul Herder does Blinky Blinky Value Town, and I love that shit. And Caldra Complete can be fetched for Stoneforge Mystic, so it's alright in my book. But the difference is, Soul Herder doesn't make other things completely obsolete, because it's not so power crept that it's the best thing to be doing in those colours or in that style of deck. Meanwhile, Caldra Complete is one of, if not the best thing to go and get with Stoneforge Mystic the vast majority of the time. And thus, it actually power creeps out and makes other older cards, like Swords of X and Y, it makes them obsolete. I have this paradoxical relationship of love and excitement for the new and the weird, but then I am driven to despair to find my old favorites get driven out of the format. Modern Horizons was originally intended, the first one at least, to be Time Spiral 2, a love letter to the history of Magic. Every card, if you look at any of the Modern Horizons sets, every card is a reference to a thing they've never really fully developed, or a callback to some sort of boomer Magic thing. It'll be intertwining two things, a mechanic you're not expecting with a classic part of Magic. So for that reason, this old fucking boomer who likes complicated, powerful callbacks to the Magic of old, Modern Horizons ticks all of those boxes. But the fact that it pushes out some of my old favourite cards, the fact that Blade Splicer and Lockstone Smiter are never going to be playable again as the power creep of Magic continues on and on, is sad. Do you feel this paradox too? Do you feel both excitement and fear when it comes to what Modern Horizons will bring to both Modern Legacy and to a lesser extent Commander? And I will say that it's not exclusively a Modern Horizons problem, but it's most concentrated in Modern Horizons. Modern Horizons encapsulates and exemplifies the power creep at the core of the issue we have with Magic and trading cards in general. And that's not to say we don't get this stuff like Omnath and core sets and similar. You do see smidgens of this here and there, but the concentration is in Horizons. And that's why I want to point it out as the big example of this. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet. And don't forget to bookmark my next show and whatnot via the link in the description below. And I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta for now.